Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Anger. And today I am joined by two fabulous people. Here we have my co-host, Leemarie Hossetter. Hey, Lee.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest, brand new IFBB professional, Holly Baxter. Holly, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Me too. It's so nice to meet you girls.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you're located, kind of like your educational background and all that.
Yeah, okay. So I am currently located in the beautiful Fort Lauderdale, which is located in Florida, for those that don't know. But I've only been here for just over a year and absolutely love it. I was previously in Tampa, which is also in Florida. And prior to that, I relocated from Australia. So that was back in 2017. But I guess to give you some background about, I guess, what I do and I guess what kind of got me into the sport of physique competitions. We have to go way back. I was really athletic and sporty as a kid. So I did basketball, track sprinting. I think my parents put me in just about every kind of sport, I guess, that they could when we were young. So I definitely was a very competitive minded individual, and it kind of carried across, I think, into my, early adult years. And I recall as I was going through university, I still really liked being athletic, but, time was limited and I didn't have the same flexibility that I used to, go and show up at track practice. There were specific times when the track athletic team were training and I either had schoolwork or I was working 5 jobs or I couldn't make it fit. So I kind of found myself during schooling, just heading into the gym and trying to put together, some pretty bad workouts, if I recall correctly. But I used to do like Les Mills body pump, or I would
Oh,
do the
yeah.
Les Mills
Mhm.
like spin classes, whatever was on the group fitness timetable that I could fit with my school study schedule. So yeah, I guess on that topic, I went to school for food science nutrition. So that was my undergraduate at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia. And I know when I got done finishing my undergraduate, I was like, there is not a chance on this planet I can go out into the workforce. I feel like I still know nothing. Sign me up, I'll do some more studies. So I was accepted into a master's program to do dietetics. Did that. That was another couple of years. And then I kind of found myself where I was like, okay, maybe I have enough knowledge now to step in and actually start and have a career, in this space. So I actually did, I guess, clinical dietetics for about 1 year after my schooling, and realized very quickly that was not the place that I wanted to be. I think having such a passion about nutrition and caring about performance and like optimizing my health, when I was in the clinical setting, I just felt like nobody was interested in being healthy. It was like they'd been sent to me by their doctor. They didn't want to be there. They weren't motivated to change, even if they just had, some kind of a heart attack or, you name it, any kind of medical condition that required nutritional intervention, which there are many. I didn't feel like very many people were super motivated to change their behaviors. So I actually opened up my own practice. During that time, I also was very interested in personal training. So I actually, when this is probably around the age of 19, I remember going and
Oh,
getting
wow.
my certifications and was doing multiple things, I guess, in health and fitness. And once I started working with people, out in the wild that were kind of signing up to work with me as a clinician, did I only really come to learn about bodybuilding and, physique sports in general. So yeah, I was coaching people to compete. And I remember one of my first clients, she said to me, look, I've got this event that I'm training for. It's in Dubai. It's in a few months' time. Have you ever considered doing it? I think you do really well. And I just remember laughing, thinking this is definitely not something I'm interested in because I've always been so athletic. I was like, well, what are you going to do? Like lift and like look good? But I also liked traveling. So I decided, you know what, it would be pretty cool to do, some exercise and get some travel, and make it part of your business. So yeah, I competed in my first show, which funny enough, I did the NPC version in Australia for
Oh,
Bikini. And
okay.
completely too muscular for that category. And then I guess I stepped into figure. And I guess I started in, it must have been 2015, went to nationals, qualified to compete for Australia. And again, this was in a natural federation, the INBA, and then made it to the World Championships in Dubai and won. So that kind of
Oh, wow.
kickstarted, I guess, my love for the sport. But it also came from a place where I don't think I was necessarily very healthy. Like from a mindset perspective, I was still struggling with an eating disorder, and just a lot of unresolved, psychological challenges. I think that I later on went to kind of address as I started therapy and things like that. But yeah, I've been competing now for many years and have recently found myself back in the IFBB, which is kind of come full circle. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have several pro cards, I believe, from I'm a huge fan of your YouTube channel and everything. So I think you also have a OCB pro card,
Yep. Yep.
and then you obviously have your WBFF as well. So
Uh-huh.
um, I want to kind of deep dive into those different federations and some of the differences. Maybe you can tell us from your perspective, why you made those switches and kind of that evolution of how you did find yourself back into the IFBB currently.
Yeah, so I think, starting out in the IMBA, which was the biggest at the time natural federation in Australia, when I kind of got to the top, I was like, I feel like this happened way too quickly, and maybe the level or quality of competitors was lacking.
Okay.
So I ended up deciding, okay, well, is there another federation that might be, number one, more competitive? I think when you, or at least if you're me, I'm looking around going, I want to be in this with other really talented individuals so that I know that I haven't got it easy. Like I want to get to the top.
Right.
And that was why I kind of thought, well, maybe the bikini with the with the MPC in Australia might be a better fit. And I did one of those competitions, and my feedback was instantly, "You're too muscular."
Okay.
So I then stepped up into, so again, I left the Natural Federation. I went to the IFBB or MPC equivalent in Australia. And I did figure for a couple of years. But again, as I kind of moved through that, the rankings to get to, a pro status, I realized that I did not want to be at the top as a figure competitor. I mean, the women were so much more muscular than I. And meanwhile, I was still a natural athlete this whole
Yes.
time, kind of
Yes.
observing the muscularity of these women. I was like, wow, I mean, it's so impressive. But I don't know that that's for me. I
Mm.
enjoy lifting, and I know the extra work that would go into being a figure competitor, is a lot more time in the gym. But I also didn't want to compromise my health and, jump on performance enhancing drugs. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the catalyst for starting over. I'd kind of worked my way through that federation and realized that it wasn't really the place that I wanted to stay. And the WBFF was another very up and coming federation in Australia that I had heard about. And then I was super interested. And again, this is all happening as I'm relocating from Australia to the US. I was curious
Okay.
to see whether the federation in the US was as popular as it was in Australia. And it was. It seemed like there was a lot of potential. I could see the quality and the caliber of athletes was exceptional. And it also offered another element of something that I felt like was missing from the IFBB or the MPC, which was the theme wear. So I kind of liked the idea that as a fit, because I was stepping in as a fitness competitor. So that particular division, I guess, sits right in between the level of muscularity of a bikini girl and a figure girl. So again, that's still lacking in the IFBB.
Perfect.
I wish that there was like a little bridge of the gap, because there are
Yes.
such differences between those groups. So fitness was perfect for me with the WBFF. I didn't have to, be on performance enhancing drugs to get to the next level if I was a figure competitor. And I didn't have to downsize and change my entire, training regimen, which again, I did it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
to fit into the bikinis. So that particular category also offered us this theme wear. So you'd come on stage 2 times, once in your bikini gown, and then you could come on stage with, this gorgeous theme of whatever you choose. And I think I really enjoyed that. It felt really feminine, and you could kind of bring a bit of sass. And, I grew up dancing and singing as well.
Okay.
So I kind of loved the performance element as well. You could kind of transform into somebody that you're probably not during the day,
Yeah.
but it's not like you can push that part of you out, like it still exists. So I think, having an opportunity to let some of that authentic part of your personality shine was also really fun. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I think all the girls that you talk to from the WBFFs say just how much they love the freedom to create, and bring an idea to life with this beautiful garment. So
Yes. So
yeah,
how
that
did you go pro in that? I guess what year, and was
yeah.
it in
So
Atlantic City, if I
I
remember?
believe so. Yeah. So I competed. My first year was Miami, and then I went to Bahamas. We did World Championships in Bahamas, and then I think I won my first pro show in 2019, which was at Atlantic City.
Okay.
So yeah, that was kind of the impetus for becoming pro. And then I competed just 1 time per year thereafter at the World Championships, which is, I guess, the way that I liked to compete. I didn't have to do multiple shows. There wasn't a point system or anything like that. You could kind of pick and choose as long as you competed once per year. And usually because they would hold it in a luxurious, exotic location or just somewhere fun, it would attract a lot of people. So you knew that you were going to have a really high standard of ladies, stepping on stage at Worlds. So yeah, that was kind of the process to get to a pro status as a WBFF competitor.
Yeah.
How
Tell us.
many,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask probably the same thing you were. How many times did you compete at Worlds before you won that title?
Well, I haven't won a world title with the WBFF. So
Okay.
Stephanie Alea has actually bet me like 3 times. I've come second, third, fourth, second.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So I have not won a world championships with the WBFF. She was a 5-time reigning champ. I think all of us were trying to pin her down a few years, but
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, I still haven't. And one of the reasons, I guess, last year in 2020, oh no, yeah, 2022, I wanted to compete and see if I could finally get there, but the messaging that had been communicated to the athletes was that they didn't want to award a really hard, very vascular, overly muscular physique to the fitness girls.
Mm.
And there, around that time, there had unfortunately been a death of a young girl or a woman that was competing in the federation. And they kind of said as, I guess, an example to make sure that they were, trying to be, what's the word? Trying to have integrity. They kind of said, we don't want to encourage people to do this. We would rather see a softer, more feminine physique on stage, which I thought was really admirable. So I came in softer in 2022 and I ended up placing fourth. The other girls were significantly leaner than I was. So I was a little bit disappointed. And then I guess as things kind of transpired out over the next 12 months, there were several things that had happened, unfortunately, with the federation that didn't really align with my values. And I know that a lot of the girls ended up changing federations and hung up their heels because of a few political things. So that's kind of why I am now back where I started with the IFBB.
Yeah. So tell us about the gown aspect of that. I was watching one of your videos where I think it was in Vegas, and you had a
Mhm.
media day theme where it was in Paris, and
Oh,
um,
yeah.
just I don't know. The gowns are so pretty. I mean, tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
so there are, I guess this is specifically for the World Championship. So it becomes like a full 5-day to 7-day event, all said and done. So, you usually arrive on a Tuesday to wherever the venue is. The competition is always on a Saturday. But throughout the course of the week, there are different obligations to the federation. So to me, I mean, I never grew up around pageants because I'm from Australia and we didn't have that. It wasn't really a thing, but I'm aware of how these things run. And, each day, the registration day, for example, you go to registration not just to pick up your banner and then your badge and all of your details or sign in. It is also like a special event. So all of the ladies will, come in a beautiful gown. And I didn't catch that memo the first year that I competed. I remember
Oh,
going
shoot.
to the Bahamas. I had a nice dress, but it was not like covered in glitter and sequins at all. It was just a very plain Jane, like corporate looking dress. I'm like, well, I didn't realize that. So, from there on, we put in a little bit more effort to the style of the gowns. But registration is an event. I mean, it's a photo op opportunity. There's lots of, I guess, media and just opportunities to kind of collaborate with some of the other, the ladies that they're competing. So that's one of the days, and you usually have a certain dress or an outfit for that. Then there is a media day, which is usually a specific theme. So sometime close to the World Championship event, Alison would send out an email to all of the registered athletes and let them know what the theme wear was going to be for Media Day. So there have been so many. There was the one night in Paris, which I think you were referring to, and all the ladies and the gentlemen would come wearing, like one night in Paris theme or style. So it was, of course, all black and white and, lots of lace and gloves and, fascinators or, you name it. You could get pretty creative. It's a fashion show as much as it is a bodybuilding show. And then I guess there is a couple of days in between, but there's also a red carpet event. So then you could potentially wear, one of the gowns that you've already got. But again, I think everybody uses it as an opportunity to just wear something else fabulous and have another gorgeous gown for the red carpet event. And again, there's usually a photo opportunity. The promoters of the show, the owners of the show would all be there, and they usually, have live broadcasting and interview some of the coaching teams and things like that. So it's very much in the eyes of the media. So yeah, we had so many gowns, and it was a lot. That's all I'll say. It was a lot.
Was that one of the reasons too? Was that a factor, like in terms of cost? Just for our listeners to know, like, okay, if you're doing this versus like NPC, where you have to do a regional show to qualify, and then you have to do, a pro qualifier or a national show, kind of what would you say the price difference is in terms of that? Because I know you're talking worlds, which is a different level than just like an amateur.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think it's really important to be distinct about those because Worlds is a beast of its own. Like
It's
there
like
are
the Olympia,
multiple,
right? Yeah,
there are
for
multiple
WBFF.
events that you need to show up and look your best for. And there are under no circumstances are you to ever be outside your hotel room without your sash, your crown, and be very well dressed. It's very frowned upon if you were seen wearing your track pants from tanning. In fact, they actually don't let you wear track pants to get your tanning. You have to go in a nice outfit. So
Oh my gosh.
it's a lot of pressure, but yeah, the cost is pretty significant. Again, I've been pretty transparent about it on my channel. I'm in 2 of the years, I think, with all of the photo shoots, travel to the destination, flights, and then renting a vehicle and your accommodation. And then again, most of the hair and makeup services, it's mandatory to use their hair and makeup artists and their tanning services. You cannot do it on your own. And you cannot stay anywhere else outside of the host hotel. And then they check your name off if you do not.
Oh, wow.
Apparently that is marked against you.
I did not know
So
that.
again, there's a lot of politics in all of this, but yeah, I think I spent 1 year $25,000 on my theme, between my theme wear, the gowns, and the bikini. And again, this is World,
Wow.
so I had 3 gowns, a theme wear, 2 different bikinis.
Wow.
And then all of the photo shoots. So they require you to do
Crazy.
photo shoots with their photographer. And that's usually on one of the non-days during the World Championship week. So again, that's like another $1,500 to pay for your booking. And then you have to get hair and makeup through them again. So you've essentially
Okay.
got hair and makeup on registration day, hair and makeup on red carpet day, hair and makeup on media day, and then hair and makeup on show
Ooh.
day and potentially a photo shoot day. So there's
Wow.
5 instances where you are required to use their services.
Whoa.
So it can really quickly add up. And I think another year I might have spent closer to $30,000.
Oh my
So
gosh. I had no
it,
idea.
yeah, it can be really expensive, but
Okay.
that's I think one of the other things were there were options once upon a time to use bikini designers and people outside of their network, and they kind of started making it a little bit more marginalized. Like you had to go with their with their people, and
Okay.
then obviously they had some kind of a commission or a royalty, and they were so expensive, to get a gown or something put together by, and I won't say their names, I'm sure they prefer to keep keep private, but there was one particular designer whose things were beautiful and I loved it. But I was like, wow, I know what I'm paying now. And these are twice as expensive. And they had mandated it that you had to use these
Oh,
people. If
wow.
you don't, we'll know about it. And that may influence your position on show day.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So as an amateur, was it like that? Or
uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they were as strict on the amateurs, but like at the pro level, I think they were very much looking at, are you ticking all of the boxes to make sure that we're awarding the person that is most supportive of the organization. So
okay.
it was unfortunately for me one of the reasons why I was stepping away in the first place. And then there were some
Yeah.
unfortunate events that took place in 2023 at the World Championships in Las Vegas, that was kind of, it ripped the band-aid off, I think, for a lot of athletes, and
Mm.
everybody, yeah, stepped away. So
Okay.
there were just lots of things that were a little bit frustrating, I think, going on. So
Okay.
probably not what you wanted me to say, but like I said, that was my experience, and it can be very expensive.
Okay. So what's the difference between FMG? Because I know FMG was really popular in Australia, and I just noticed that Texas I think they just brought FMG to the United States, and it seems very similar to WBFF. Do you know anything about that, or is that something that
I
you,
do, I do.
okay.
So the owners of FMG were previously good friends with the 5-time reigning world champ, Stephanie Ilea. I think I'm saying her surname correctly.
Okay.
And I guess in all of the drama that took place last year, 2023, Stephanie actually retired and quit the organization.
Okay.
And I guess her natural pathway was to go and take part in, the FMG with her close connection with those individuals. And I think that's where a lot of the WBFF girls have actually gone to. So I'm not sure. I have not kept up with the WBFF, for many reasons, not because I have any, hate against them or anything at all. Just it aligned with my values personally to kind of step away. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of what it's all about, it's going to be the same, the same kind of shows where you've got, theme wear for the fitness girls, it's gowns for the bikini girls,
Hmm.
and it'll be run very similarly. But I have not personally competed with that federation. All I know is that most of the pros that I'd been competing with for the last 5 years all stepped away from the WBFF, and that kind of was the counterpart, or the federation that resembled, the most similarities. So that was kind of their natural step.
Okay. So
Yeah.
shifting gears, let's get to, first of all, Pittsburgh Pro, where that was your first NPC competition
Mhm.
ever in the United States, right?
Yes.
and you won the overall, which is amazing because it's such a big show and it's right there where the Manions live and all of that. So tell us about that and, what was that prep like? And then how many weeks later was it that you did junior nationals? What was
It
the
was,
time gap there?
I think it was about 7 weeks gap. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was April to June. So yeah, it was about 7 weeks.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. So kind of that whole timeline of how this all came about, because then you turned around and did your first pro show because Sandy did her first pro show in
national.
line with that. I don't know. I'm like botching up the words. Was it that day or was it the next
Yeah, it
day?
was the
The pro show?
same
It was the
day.
same
That
day.
was
Okay.
a really tough day. But I
Yeah, I
guess
bet.
to take you back to the Pittsburgh Pro Show,
Yes, we'll rewind.
yeah, that was a 6 month prep. So it's the first time that I have ever done a really slow, intentional slow prep. Normally, when I compete, I've always had a pretty limited amount of time or weeks that I can be that focused for with all of my, businesses and things going on. So I would probably limit it to like 15 weeks at most. And I recall the last show I did in 2022 with the WBFF, that was an 8 week prep.
Oh, wow.
So
You looked
it
amazing.
was, so this was a really different approach for me, but it was, I think, a sensible one because, I've started new businesses now. We have our, an all female coaching team. We've written books. We've got so many different fun projects happening. I was like, look, if I want to do this, I want to be able to do it in a way that feels comfortable and that allows me to continue to invest time in the other areas of my life that are still really important to me. Like competing, whilst it fits nicely with my businesses, it's just a hobby at the end of the day. So I was like, I want to still enjoy it for the hobby that it is, not feel like it's crushing my soul and, taking away all the joy in my life. So I
Yeah.
started prepping at the beginning of the year. And I guess by the time I got to Pittsburgh, I think it might have been 18 weeks.
Okay.
So that show was so fun. Again, I'd never been to Pittsburgh, so it was really fun just to travel to a new city and then experience an NPC show because I've coached people, but I've never, been present at these shows. I've always helped people with their nutrition and their training. So it was a really fun experience and everyone was so friendly. It was so well signed and everybody knew everything. It wasn't like just the people backstage knew where this thing was. I think I asked like a door attendant and they were like, yes, hair and makeup's over there. Tanning's back here. Oh, you need to be here for the athletes meeting. I'm like, how do you know all these things? So to me, it seemed like it was really well organized. I haven't had that experience, I think, in the past. It's always been very last minute.
Okay.
Or again, world championships had always been in such a huge facility that it felt really difficult to kind of find things. So this was like all in the one venue and it just felt very easy. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous, I guess, mostly for the posing because it is a lot more technical.
Yes.
Whereas again, to kind of provide some contrast between the WBFF and the bikini comps, the WBFF, there's no structured routine. It is really whatever you want to do. So there are things that are kind of frowned upon, but I think for the most part, it gives you the ultimate freedom to, have your sass, have your style, your arm movements, your arm routine, your footwork. It's very much you do what you would like to do to demonstrate your physique best, and then your costume, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the posing was the most difficult thing for me because it is so technical and it's like you don't want to stand out. You have to do
Yeah.
the same thing so that it's easy for comparison's sake.
Yep.
So I was really nervous. I know in my first round for pre-judging, when I was like transitioning from front to back, I like stepped sideways because I was so nervous. I'm like, what is this? Like I'm like shaking. It was like
Aw.
really a whole new experience. But yeah, I had a lot of fun and yes, I guess I won that show and took
You
out the
guys
overall.
just won the overall my first show.
But
No big
it
deal.
was actually so embarrassing because I had no idea what to expect. And again, I was ready and prepared for them to say you're too muscular, like go home, lose some muscle or grow into figure again, which I was dreading. I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So I had entered into like 35 plus, which was a master's category, open. And then I guess there were height categories as well. So I think I ended up having to get called back up for 4 different categories on the day. And I was
Oh,
so
wow.
embarrassed because it was like, and the winner is Holly. And I'm like, oh no. So that was funny.
That's fantastic though.
No, I know it's a really cool outcome. I wasn't prepared for it at all, and then I'm like, what do I do? But yeah, that qualified me for nationals, and that I ended up speaking with Sandy after the Pittsburgh show, and she said, well, come to my show, and you get
Yeah.
an opportunity. If you win or if you get your pro card at the NPC, you automatically get to turn around that same day and then compete with the pro ladies in the evening,
Yeah.
which again, then if you win a pro show, you're straight to the Olympia. I'm like,
Right.
oh, this could potentially be like 2 shows, one and done if I was good enough, which to me, I'm all about efficiency. Like I'm not going to waste time. I'm so busy again. This is a hobby. So yeah, I went and did that show, which was out in Tennessee. Don't ask me the name of the town I was in.
Chattanooga.
I can't remember. Chattanooga.
It's a random one. It's not very
Yeah,
well
but
known.
it was such a pretty town. I
Yeah.
went for a couple of walks and had a look around, and there was like a beautiful river, and like the buildings were very colonial. It reminded me of kind of where I grew up. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that was a great experience. So I won my category there, and I guess there were many other girls that were awarded their pro card. I didn't win the overall though. There was one girl that placed ahead of me at that show, which
Okay.
I think I'm still a bit confused about that as to why our physiques are like starkly different. And I
Okay.
spoke to a lot of other individuals, and they thought that I might have done a little better than I had, but I mean, at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it's not my decision. But I listened to their feedback, and they basically told me, you need to bring your shoulders down a little bit.
Okay.
Your upper body in general is too muscular, which I kind of thought that might be the case. I've done powerlifting and all of the strength training, so I have like lots of muscle around my rib cage and my back. So it's meant that I've
Yeah.
changed the entire way that I train. Maybe not necessarily the way I enjoy training, but it's what I've got to do to shrink. And then yeah, that evening anyhow, I was like, okay, well, she kind of encouraged us all to get back on stage as pros.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, well, I guess I can get on the stage. I know I'm probably not going to do so well because at that point, you've been on stage early in the morning and you've peaked. There's certain nutrition protocols that I'll implement to look my best then. And then you've got
Yeah.
to peak again for, the evening show for the amateurs. It's really tough to hang on to that level of crispiness for
Yes.
another show like an hour or so later. So by the time I hit stage for the pros, I looked to me like a lot softer, like I was fluidy, I was fatigued. So I know I wasn't bringing my best to the show, but I also knew like I didn't want to disappoint Allison, didn't want to disappoint Sandy, and not show up and have an opportunity to be on stage with these girls. So
Yeah.
it was terrifying, but I did it.
You got 13th, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean,
There were 25 girls too. I was
yeah,
like,
that's impressive.
good.
Yeah, because a lot of them they were peaking for that show, right? Probably I don't know
Yeah.
how many, but was it A through H in your at nationals? Were you G
So
class or H or how tall are you?
I'm 5'8". I think for that
5'8".
class,
Oh, so you were H.
I was H for that show.
Okay.
But yeah, there were 25 girls in the pro show.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
to come 13th, that was like, I was ready to be like bottom 5. So it was good. It was really
Yeah,
good.
that's really impressive for sure.
Thank you.
So, what will you do moving forward? I know that your series was kind of like the Miss Olympia prep. So,
Mm,
I mean, I know you're aspiring to do that, but with your work and
uh-huh.
everything, where are you at now with your
So
plan?
my original goal was to keep doing pro shows now until I won, which I think it's very optimistic. But I think, if you put your head down, and this goes for anybody, I mean, nothing is off the cards. You just have to do the work. So I knew that I would have a lot of work cut out for me. And maybe, I mean, I don't know whether I ever will. I'm not sure. But I think as far as my competition season for this year goes, there have been a couple of things just in my personal life that and they've not gone away. They've been there for quite a few months, in fact, over a year or so now, that I am trying to juggle. And it has just been like so psychologically draining and then physiologically draining as well. And I think,
Yeah.
to really invest to being, a winner of a pro show, like you have to be able to focus on it. And,
Yeah.
I'm kind of already spreading myself across so many different like areas of my life, and I don't think, number one, I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't be happy about the experience. And I also think it was starting to already cost me, my mental health and my physical health.
Yeah.
With the amount of hours that you put into these shows
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
investment to nutrition. I did not have and do still not have the bandwidth, I think, to show up my best. And again, I don't want to do it just to be like, oh, I'm a competitor. Like I do these things because I want to do really well and exceed. Um, so I think this year might be like, I'm not going to do any more shows. Things
Okay.
would have to change pretty dramatically, I think, for me to do that. But I did say to my partner earlier over the weekend, we need to look and see if there are any other shows. Like, when's the last qualifying opportunity? Because I need a break right now. But if there are
Hmm.
in 6 weeks' time or something, there's one more final pro qualifier for the Olympia. I'm not so far away in leanness that I couldn't potentially cut down, potentially win a pro show and go to the Olympia, but that would be a huge, huge investment. So I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, your physique is there. I mean, tell us about your business though, because we at Glam Girl are also female owned and operated. And
Oh, that's so cool.
I just love supporting a female entrepreneur and just everything that you do for, women and things like that. Tell us about your business and what you do, all that.
Yeah. So I guess the oldest business at the moment is Be a Body. So I founded or formed that company when I went through my divorce. So I previously had a coaching team. We had a nutrition coaching app, training platform, a host of different things. And as part of that separation, I basically had to give up all rights to my businesses. So it's
Mm.
okay. I was like, this is a fresh start, and I wanted to have an opportunity to do this with women. I feel like one of the things that was limiting me and that kind of was keeping like me under a ceiling was not being able to work exclusively with women and really explore, all of the different marketing opportunities and just the fun stuff that women like to do in general. So I'm honestly very happy that I have that this opportunity. So Be a Body is, as you mentioned, an all-female team. We have several different areas of expertise, or I guess we have allied health. So we have another dietitian, we have a physical therapist, strength and conditioning coaches. We have a more recent to our team, a slew of coaches, is Dr. Gabrielle Fondero. She specializes in, I guess, non-tracking approaches to nutrition. And mindful eating, intuitive eating approaches. One of our other coaches specializes in eating disorders, disordered eating behavior. We have somebody that works specifically with women that are either in the process or midst of menopause or have gone through it. I guess she kind of specializes in, hormonal health. And then, my
Fantastic.
area is, physique sports. Obviously, that's been my
Yeah.
background and performance. So yeah, that's what our team does. And then outside of that, this whole time I had been developing a new training app, which has now been launched. It's called Be a Fit. So that's our new training app, which has got workouts for all ages, different interests, experience levels. We worked really hard to develop a cool app. And then we've written books. We've recently launched a new product called Be a Brain, which is my research review. So every
Oh.
month, we basically review 4 new publications in the area of nutrition and or exercise science or health. And then we
Very
provide
cool.
it as like an audible form. So, for people that are really busy, who might be coaches, but they don't have time to read a journal
Oh,
or,
love
get
that.
the synopsis of the latest, you can kind of get it in one place. So
That's
that is something,
fantastic.
yeah, that's what we've just launched. So lots of things going on.
Yeah, we'll have to put links to that. I'm definitely interested in that because when people are doing their cardio or driving in their car, it's,
They need something to
to,
listen
yeah,
to.
to pour through something that you have to read. That's a huge time saver. I love that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Lee, did you have any questions?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
want to touch a little bit because you mentioned struggling with some disordered eating or even an actual eating disorder. And I feel like there is a little bit of a stigma, hopefully that it is being dispersed now with, good coaching, healthy preps and things. But I do think there's a little bit of a stigma in the bodybuilding, physique sport
Mhm.
arena that it will give you an eating disorder or you'll become obsessed or something like that. But you were able to obviously overcome that and go on to compete past that. Can you just talk a little bit about that journey and then about your belief in healthy bodybuilding competition, especially for females?
Yeah, so I think I want to address the first part, which was, that there's this stigma that it does contribute to eating disorders. And I will say, if you look at the research, when you embark on any form of, calorie manipulation or caloric restriction, tracking macros, there is an inherent increased risk in developing disordered eating behaviors and eating disorders. And unfortunately, when you look at the bodybuilding community specifically, that risk is substantially heightened. So that is a known fact. So I think, when I started competing, I don't think I was, again, mentally in the right space to even, discern this as, oh, I'm not going to do this sport. Like I was already coming at it from a very unhealthy mindset. I already had an eating disorder, and this just enabled some of the behaviors, but more importantly, the beliefs and the narrative that I carried, going into the sport. So it was basically a vehicle to continue those behaviors and to continue the belief.
Mhm.
So for the longest time, I had an eating disorder from probably, I think, about age 15, all the way through to 27, which is when I really started to tackle it. So I'm a few years into bodybuilding before I really decided I need to change, or I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life, or, worse, because I was in a pretty bad place, from a mental health perspective. I may not even be here to see the rest of my life through. So I think I want to make sure that it's known that is an inherent risk, but I think I am living proof, and I know that there must be many, many other people that have done the work to heal from that eating disorder. And I don't know that you're ever 1000% like cured. I think what we do is we understand the person that we want to be. We know how we want to feel. We still experience certain emotions and we still experience certain thoughts. And some of those habitual, some of them are reactive to the environment that we live today. But we do a much better job at changing the narrative, pushing back on some of those negative narratives, all those dysfunctional beliefs, that allow you to adopt much healthier habits. And again, it's because you've done the work to change your thoughts and beliefs of yourself. So I know for me, the reason that I got into bodybuilding initially and why I was manipulating calories and, tracking my macros, it started off as a measure of control. And that control stemmed from trauma from my childhood.
Mm.
And, it was those experiences as a young girl or a teenager, that led me to feel like the only thing that I had control of during those early years was the food that I put in my body. And then it became a way for me to feel loved. And what I mean by that is my experiences as a young person were, you only get love, or you're only praised or given any sort of attention is conditional based on how you performed or what you did. So I only knew, like, I had to do things to feel love or to be in receipt of love. So it's like that conditional relationship with, you know, people in my life, parents, family members, other, you know, responsible adults, so on and so forth. So I think me going into bodybuilding, it started off a habit. You know, I was already tracking macros, but it was giving me the validation that I felt like I needed. I had terribly poor body confidence. I had no self-esteem. I was a people pleaser, chronic people pleaser, perfectionist, like OCD, you know, and again, all of this stemmed from, you know, my childhood and early adulthood. And I had never bothered to address any of those things. What I could do, though, was I could keep manipulating my diet. I could keep it going. I could keep getting validation and praise and attention and congratulations and feeling like that was what, you know, made me the person that I am or was. But I also realized that that was so unhealthy. It was so toxic. And it was just leading me into this like negative headspace. You know, I was constantly unhappy if I wasn't staged and shredded all year round. I hated what I saw in the mirror. I was just disgusted at myself if I couldn't maintain, you know, this perfect image 24/7, like every day of the year. And, you know, I think until I started to do some of that self-development work, and identify, you know, who is Holly? Like, what is the authentic form of Holly? Who does she want to be? How does she want to feel? And then start, you know, recognizing my other strengths and things that were, you know, great qualities that had nothing to do with my physical appearance or, you know, my body composition. And then giving myself grace and practicing compassion and learning how to be kind to myself. Kind of all the things that I would probably coach other people, but I couldn't apply it to myself. You know, that was kind of when, you know, the big aha moments started happening. And I just found myself becoming just such a happier individual when I wasn't holding myself to this unrealistic standard all the time. And, you know, that kind of helped reduce the frequency of the binge eating disorder that I was struggling with. I made a pact to myself that for health reasons, I was never going to purge ever again. And once I set myself that goal, this is not how you cope anymore, Holly. You have to deal with the problems, you know, rather than masking them. That led me always back to, okay, well, why do I feel like I need to purge? Why do I feel like I was binge eating in the first place? And it was usually an emotion, some way that I didn't know how to cope with. I felt a certain way, and my coping mechanism was through food for comfort. And, you know, or procrastination, you know, something was really difficult, everything was food. I had terrible coping skills. So, you know, I started working with a therapist and finding these more proactive ways of coping. And, you know, I took the pressure off myself in general to be, you know, you have to be beautiful 24/7. You can't sit around in trackies and not wear any makeup. You can go out in public and just, you know, be gay for one day, you know, just let yourself go. You know, I think then I found I was just such a happier person. And yeah, today competing is night and day different experience for what the old version of me used to be, because now I can get up on stage. I love the process. But I'm not attached to the outcome. My identity isn't the stage lean version. She can very easily, you know, ease back out of a competition, still, you know, respect myself. I can have appreciation for my other interests. I don't feel the pressure to stay that lean anymore. And I, you know, think about exercise and my diet for my health and for how I feel. You know, if I still won't, you know, allow myself just to go crazy and eat tons and tons of, you know, like junk food, not because of my fear of gaining body fat or anything like that, but more, you know, I don't actually feel that good when I eat that way. And I like to feel energetic and be able to get up and go for a run, or, you know, be able to move around and not feel like I'm waterlogged, which I have done for this last week, I know. So like some of my dietary behaviors may adjust more towards healthier foods, but it's no longer out of a fear for gaining weight, but rather, oh, I want to fuel for performance, or I want to fuel my
Yes.
body this week because I want to pick up another hobby and I'm going to need extra energy for that. So yeah, I think I just feel like I can approach competitions with such a better, balanced mindset. Now, when you're in it, it does not feel balanced. And again, I think this is where, people aspire to looking like a bodybuilder. And I think that's great. But they need to understand how much work goes into the period of time where you're restricting. Like, it's a lot of effort, and not everybody, even if they can, they might possess the discipline and the, wherewithal to do it. Can they do that in their current environment? Are they a mom of 3 children? Do they also have a busy career? Are they also trying to be a great wife? Or are they looking after, an elderly parent who needs care? Like, and there's just no more time in the day to invest into the sport, because that's kind of the next level that bodybuilding is. And I think that's where I find myself having the most conversations with clients. I have no doubt for a second that you couldn't do this, but the environment and the circumstances, for when you do a show are so important. So maybe for right now and the situation that you are in, it's not the best time to be dieting, or it's not the best time definitely to be cutting. Use this time as, I guess, maintenance of your health, and maintenance maybe of your muscle mass. That might be part of health for you. And think about choosing a different time when it actually fits within, the circumstance a little bit better.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very vulnerable and just helpful, I think, for other females that are maybe going through that. So I just appreciate your transparency and sharing that. Did you have any
Yeah,
other
of course.
questions, Lee? I know I've kind of hogged the conversation most of this podcast.
I'm a huge fan, so I'm just sitting back enjoying it.
I know we're running out of time and your time is super valuable, Holly. So was there any advice that you have for our listeners in terms of just, maybe it was a question that we didn't ask you, or a topic that you wanted to share with our audience about living the prep life, or tips that you have?
You know what? I really think that the thing that I find myself saying the most to people inquiring about coaching or that are currently coaching clients is to try to have some balance and recognize where your aesthetics sits on your list of, priorities, and then all of the other things that are important to you. And I know for me, my value system for the most number of years was completely backwards. Aesthetics and appearance was everything. And, so many other things kind of fell by the wayside, or I would put below. But I also recognize that where I had my aesthetics and appearance was also causing me the most amount of harm, like from my mental health and my physical health. And I was so unhappy. I felt that if I could be lean year round, that it would somehow make me a happier person, and it would mean I get all the success in the world. And it's absolutely not true. And I think you'll hear so many people time and time again say, like, when you finally get to the goal, does it actually feel any different, or does it suddenly magically make things better? And I don't think that it does. So, when you're pursuing a goal, I would just try to keep in mind like all of the things that are important to you, and how much better it is to have balance. And I think for many women, especially, we are so hard on ourselves. And I think we set our standards to something that's potentially unrealistic. I use the expression like it's a tall order to hold yourself to that standard all the time. And I think if we practice a bit more self-compassion, and we practice a bit more kindness and balance, and give ourselves a bit more grace more often, we will probably be healthier, happier individuals. Because number one, we'll have a better mental state more times than not. And I also think it will allow us to have longevity within the lifting arena. I think if you do anything too hard for too long, you get burnt out. And I know every time I enter into a competition, by the end of that period, I cannot stand lifting. It is like, it's such a chore. It gets really, really difficult, or in certain circumstances. I won't say I hate it all the time, but it kind of takes the fun away from things. So I think that if you want to stay healthy for a long time, we recognize the inherent value of resistance training, but there's also an inherent value of, cardiovascular health and mental health, in all of this. So, in order to do this well for a long time, sometimes it's, taking a slightly less intense focus and doing it a little bit more balanced the entire way, so that we can do it, for a long time.
I love it. Yeah, that's the prep life in a nutshell. Basically, that longevity. So if our listeners wanted to reach out and thank you, which I'm sure they will, or if they want to find you, what are some good ways to do that? And we'll definitely link all of your other items in our show notes as well, if people need to reference it. But
Sure. Honestly, if you go to my Instagram or my YouTube, they're both just Holly T Baxter. And you'll find all the links to all of our products and services and free resources. We've got so many freebies and things for people to use if they're interested. So yeah, that's all on our website.
that's perfect. And if you want to tag us and Holly as well on Instagram, you can find us at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. Thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I know everybody will get so much from this episode. You were wonderful. I appreciate you. Thanks for
Thank
listening,
you.
guys.